We are back, it's the next day. I've gone ahead and removed the vanity down here. So it's all gone, cleaned up. It's a bit of a bulky drain system, so we're gonna see if we can maybe minimize it a little bit, clean it up when the new vanity goes in. But for now, we're gonna focus on taking the medicine cabinet out. And you'll notice that there's gonna be 3 holes to patch: the medicine cabinet hole, as well as these 2 holes down here. Instead of making 3 separate patches, I'm gonna cut one big hole, put one piece of drywall in. It makes for an easier mudding and taping job, but also gives a better and flatter substrate at the end, rather than trying to mud and blend and feather out 3 separate patches. So it's just easier to make one bigger hole, patch it all in. If you don't have one of these tools, smells like medicine. And now that the patch is done, we can mix up some 90 and do the first coat. All right, I've got my mudding supplies. I'm using the Sheetrock 90 for my first coat on the wall, which is this. It's just a fast setting mud, just accelerates the process of drying, so I can put a second coat on today still, and it's a bit more of a durable finish as well, so I like using that. I want a consistency like yogurt or peanut butter. Just something smooth enough to go on the wall nicely. And this stuff does dry pretty fast, so you want to work with it fast. Especially when you start applying it to the wall, it accelerates the process a little bit. Got a 14-inch flat, and the objective of this is to fill in the voids as best I can with this heavy duty coat. I want to knock off any high points that I see. Scrape it off. And just like that, there's the first coat. But I do have to kind of move a little quickly so I don't waste too much of this mud. So I'll move on to the next wall over here. You can see I have a patch here. I do have some paper to put on those seams. If you don't tape your seams in your drywall, it will crack. We do want to make sure we add some tape there. To the wall. Halfway through this wall and I ran out of mud, so I'm gonna have to mix them up quickly just so I can feather into my wet mud. This stuff's probably already started drying, so going into already drying product or material is always not ideal. So I'm gonna get a bit of a move on to mix up this next batch. And back with the new batch. not gonna move the toilet, I'm gonna try and work around it because the shut off for it is seized. And one of the worst things that can happen is some kind of leak and you can't shut it off. And have to mix up another batch of mud. This patch will take a little bit extra because I recessed the drywall just a little bit because it's easier to fill a hole, make it smooth rather than have a mound and try and taper it out more like on the wall. So gonna probably add a 1/16 inch of mud, maybe 1/8 to that patch, and then just gotta skim coat this little area here. I've got this hole here, and again I want to make sure I put tape over it, otherwise it will crack. Alright, that pretty much does it for the first coat. Again, what you want to do is apply typically one direction, and then the next coat you'll go perpendicular to that coat. Otherwise, if you go in the same direction, if there's any ridges or humps, you'll just follow that with the second coat and it won't be flat. Whereas if you go one direction and then this direction, it's going to fill in those valleys really nicely, it won't fall out. And then the third coat is usually just a skim coat to clean it up. So first coat went pretty well. Super humid in here. I'm gonna wait for this to dry and be back right now. The first coat has dried, which means I can go ahead and begin the second coat. And with this coat, I'm just using regular mud. For my third and final coat, I'll thin down the mud a little bit so I can just apply it a little more straighter onto the wall. But this coat is almost a filler coat as well, so it doesn't have to be thinned down. The consistency it comes with in that bucket, well, it's heavier than I thought, will be good enough for this coat. So I'm just gonna add it to my hawk. I do like mixing it a little bit on my hawk. It just, well, I think it gets rid of some of the air and just adds a little bit of fluidity. I don't know how you would say that. It makes it more creamy and less clumpy almost. Real technical there, but yeah, we'll go ahead and apply this coat. Okay, I just finished up that second coat. It turned out pretty good. I just filled in more of the valleys and indents from the first coat. I'm gonna wait a couple days for this to dry. It might dry by tomorrow, but it is really humid in here. So I'm gonna have to get some fans at the humidifier. Hopefully that dries it by tomorrow and I can do the third and final coat. And for that coat, I'm just gonna pull tighter in different directions until it looks good basically. So the first coat, I went one way, second coat the other way, or I tried to. Third coat will just be a really thin, watered down coat to fill in any imperfections. So I will see you right now as we jump forward to where this is dried and I start the third and final, hopefully, coat. It is the next day now. The second coat of mud is dried. I put a dehumidifier in the room to help with that process, which accelerated it quite a bit. I can now go ahead and begin my third coat. I've mixed up some mud, added some water so it's a bit more thin. It just helps do a thinner coat of mud over top of this coat here to fill in any voids and imperfections. But before I do that, I have to make sure there's no flakes of mud or adhesive from previously, anything sticking out or sticking proud. So I'm just going to go around and knock down any high points. You just want to make sure that when you're doing each coat, your blade isn't riding up on any ledge or any hump in the mud, because then you're going to build up your mud to the height of that bump and you're kind of defeating the purpose. So anything too excessively high, you just want to bump off. And now that that's done, I can go ahead and do my third skim coat. So here you can see the consistency, a little more runny, and if I'm not dirty enough, this coat tends to be the most messy. And that's the third coat on this wall. Just again, a really thin skim coat. Doesn't matter the direction as much as the angle of your trowel to avoid any chatter marks or ripples, because it's so thin, your trowel can tend to skip a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna finish up this room and I'll give you an update at the very end. All right, I just finished up the third and final coat. Turned out pretty well. I'm gonna have to do another coat on this patch here where the medicine cabinet was, just because a mirror is going to go back on there and I don't want my mirror on a humped surface. I want it flat, so I'm going to end up feathering that out a little bit more. You can see here stuff like this can easily be knocked down with my 4-inch knife after the fact, and then ridges like this even can be sanded away fairly easily, so I'm not too worried about stuff like that. The pole sander and the sanding sponge I'll be using will take care of that. So that's gonna do it for this video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next one.